everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Lily and Generoso. I'm Lily.
I'm Generoso!
And today, or tonight I should say, we are going to be making a variation on Banh, which is a kind of rice dumpling, which is not too far off from chewy nuoc, which is what I oddly made 2 weeks ago, is that now? So it's also a rice dumpling that's made with like glutinous sweet rice, and it has a delicious filling, this time with mung bean, pork belly, and shrimp. And it has a soft dumpling on top and a crispy fried fritter on the bottom, and it's really, really delicious. And it'll be served with nuoc mam and some lettuce. So let's look at our ingredients. There are a lot this time. First and foremost, we have the pork belly. Yes, the pork belly. This is probably about like
Two-thirds of a pound.
2/3 of a pound of pork belly. The more, the better. We have a 16-ounce bag of glutinous rice flour. This time I have the Thai rice flour, exactly like I had mentioned the previous episode that I did. This is definitely the better version. If you can't find the Thailand version, you can definitely get the Korean version, which we also keep in the house as well. We have a ton of other like gadgets, but we also have mung beans that have now been soaking for probably like 6 hours.
6 hours.
I soaked them this morning. We have a red onion. We're probably only going to use about a half of it. We have a half a pound of shrimp that we are going to very finely chop and mince. We have some ground black pepper. We have some salt. We have some lemon juice that we're going to use for the nuoc mam. We're using constituted lemon juice this time instead of our normal fresh squeezed lime juice. That was mostly only because it's a little easier to use the lemon juice. And then we have nuoc mam, which is fish sauce, our favorite. We have some soy sauce. We have some cane sugar. And then we have a lot of scallions. Some of this is going to go into the actual filling, and the other is going to go into an oil. And then we have a head of lettuce. And so we are now going to first and foremost steam our mung beans because we now have a steamer.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, do you need a steamer for this dish?
Kind of, because the dumplings I'm actually going to steam this time around instead of boiling. So having a steamer is a good thing.
Very cool.
So we will start steaming the mung beans and prepping a bunch of other stuff, and we'll see you very shortly. So our steamer is nice and steamy at this point. I'm going to take the lid off. And at this point I've strained my mung beans. I'm just going to lay
As
them
we
out.
said off camera, I mean, you're going to lose a few in the strainer, right?
Yeah, we're going to definitely lose a few. But that's okay, because at least there's enough mung bean to spread out.
And how long are they going to steam for?
They've been soaking for about 6 hours now, so they'll probably need to steam for about like 10 minutes in total. You want to essentially steam them until they become soft.
Excellent.
So just take your hand and spread them out across the steamer. Be careful because there is steam coming up from it. Alright. And then put the lid on. And then make sure the heat is nice and high. And then we just let that go for about 10 minutes. And so we are going to continue to prep all the meat stuff, and we will see you very shortly. Mung beans are still steaming, and so we're going to take the time to go ahead and marinate our meat. So I have finely chopped up the pork belly and also the shrimp, and now we're going to marinate. So we're going to get some pepper. And probably put on about half a teaspoon.
How about that?
Going to get some soy sauce. I want to pour about a tablespoon and a half on this. And then next, our handy dandy friend, the fish sauce. We're going to use actually probably about a tablespoon of this as well. So just 1 and 2. And then we're going to add about a tablespoon of sugar. Perfect. And then just for a little bit of touch, you don't have to do this, I'm going to get some garlic powder. Just do a couple shakes. Probably about half a teaspoon. And now take your hands and just mix it all up.
How long will this marinate for?
This will essentially marinate for as long as we do all the other prep, so probably about 15 to 20 minutes before we give it all a good fry.
Fantastical.
Alright, so just going to continue to stir this on up, and now we just want to let it sit and hang and gather up and soak up all the flavor, so we'll see you very shortly. So we've done a lot since. Taking the mung beans out and put them into a bowl. I just used a wooden spoon to kind of smoosh them up a little bit. They should already be somewhat of a paste now that they're steamed. There still will be some mung beans that are whole, but that's okay. As long as they're soft, that's the most important thing. Our meat is still marinating. I've cut up about a half of a red onion as finely as I can, and then I've cut up all of those scallions. And now we are going to make scallion oil, which is going to be used to top these banh. So what I'm going to do is just take this pan and very generously coat the bottom with some extra virgin olive oil. I think this part is actually important that you use some nice oil, because the whole point is that the oil should soak up all the flavor of the scallions. So then now, let that oil heat up for a little bit.
Now the purpose of this oil is what exactly?
It's the topping for the dumpling.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. Alright, and so now we just put in about half of our scallions. And everything will smell super nice. Alright, and then we'll leave the rest for the actual filling with the meat itself. Got my chopsticks. And we just want to keep on frying these until you can really smell the green onion coming off, and then we'll just shut those off and put it right off to the side. So we will see you in just a couple more minutes when we're ready to actually begin preparing the meat filling. Alright, so we've been letting the meat marinate now for about 15-20 minutes, and that's mostly because we've done a lot of other prep work. So the scallions are nice and cooked through, and the oil at the bottom is nice and tasty. In the meantime, I've also made the nuoc to dip, which is essentially 1 part nuoc, the actual fish sauce in the bottle, to 1 part lime or lemon juice, to 1 part water, to 1 part sugar. So it's a super easy recipe. And now we're going to turn the stove on to a nice high heat. We're only going to give a tiny baby bit of oil on this one, because we're going to be frying both pork belly and shrimp, and those are highly fatty, and we don't need too much grease to fry all of them.
No.
Just cover that. And now we'll put in the marinated meat, as it makes a nice slidey noise. Just gonna let the pan get hot, and then the pork belly should get nice and golden brown, and then once this gets a little bit hotter, we'll add the red onion and the scallion. So we'll see you in a couple of minutes when we're ready to actually add the scallion and the red onion. Alright, so our pork belly and our shrimp is starting to fry up. The shrimp is starting to turn a little bit orange, and at this point we are going to add the rest of the scallions. And then we're also going to add the red onion as well. That'll just give the filling extra flavor. And so you'll notice that there's quite a bit of water collecting at the bottom. You want to make sure that this filling stays nice and dry. So we're going to fry everything up, and if there's still a lot of liquid at the bottom, you'll want to just press a spatula up against the filling and let it dry off a little bit. So I'm going to keep on frying this up until the red onions become a little soft and the meat begins to get a little bit more color, and we'll see you very shortly. Alright, so our meat is all nice and dry fried. You notice there's no excess liquid at the bottom and that nothing is burned. It's just all nice and dry fried. So I'm going to just take it and dump it straight into the mung bean mix. We're going to eventually roll this mung bean mix into individual little balls. But before we can do that, we have to make sure that our filling is not excruciatingly hot, which it is right now. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this mung bean and mix it all with that.
Excellent.
And let all of this cool together, because it's definitely not workable or malleable at the moment. Without you hurting yourself, which is never a good thing.
No, it's way too hot at this juncture. I can see it steaming. I know I have this bad habit of doing this with 2 or 3 of my dishes, especially Thanksgiving with stuffing. I'll get the hot sausage pieces and I'll stuff them right in. I'll start filling up the bird. My hand is just charring. I think it adds a certain level of flavor, the burns can.
And spirit.
And spirit.
Alright, so we're just going to let that cool off so that we can work with it in a little bit. And in the meantime, we can make the actual dough. So we're going to take our rice flour, pour it into our big mixing bowl.
The whole thing?
Yes, the whole thing. This is 16 ounces, so 1 whole pound of glutinous rice flour. The Thai kind. Whew. And you'll see that there's a little bit of a kick up back because rice flour is very fine. So now we're going to add about 1 2/3 cup of water to our flour. So we have 1. And now I'm going to go to my handy dandy 1/3 cup measure. There we go. 1 and 2. And we're also going to add exactly 1 teaspoon of salt to this dough just to make it taste nice. Alrighty. And I'm also going to just add a tiny bit of olive oil because we're going to put this in the steamer and we want to make sure that it doesn't stick too badly. So just a quick drizzle. And now I'm going to knead the dough. So again, like the last time we made dough, this dough should be nice and tough. You can always add a little bit more water if it's needed. But remember, you want to start off a little bit drier. That way you can add water and you don't have to worry about taking water away or adding more flour, which always gets a little dicey. So I'm going to continue to knead this until this becomes a nice and stable ball that we can work with, and we'll see you very shortly. Alright, so our dough is settling now. It's almost like a kind of Play-Doh, clay-esque texture. And all I'm doing is just kind of picking it up from the bowl and just giving it one last knead. So we actually, this rice flour that we bought was a little bit dry, so we added about a whole nother cup of water actually before this buddy started to bind up.
Excellent.
Alright, and so I'm going to let this dough sit a little bit, and we're going to see how our mung beans are doing and if they're cool enough for us to actually touch. Alright, so the mung beans are cool enough to touch, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little handful and just going to press it into a little ball. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect. You want to make sure that you get enough meat in there though, so if you have to pick off a couple pieces of meat and just squeeze it on there, that's no problem. And I'm just going to put it aside on the plate, and we're going to make all of the balls until we have enough to fill our dumplings, and we'll see you very shortly when we make the dumplings themselves. So we finished rolling up all of our mung bean. They're in nice balls. So what I'm going to actually make first is the bit of, it's kind of like a flat patty of dough that's going to get fried right underneath the actual dumpling. So the way that this works is that the best thing about this version of Banh is that there's a flat patty that ends up getting fried in oil, and then on top of this like fried crispy patty is a dumpling that has been steamed with the delicious mung bean inside. So all I'm doing is just making these flat patties now. So that's probably perfect for the size of our dumplings. This is about, what, like 1.5 inches in diameter? So I'm just going to lay it down on the plate. So you want to use about 1/3 of your dough to do this. And then you'll use the rest to actually make the dumplings. So I'll keep on making these patties, and then I will see you when we are ready to start actually making the dumplings and then actually frying these patties, which we'll do before we steam the dumplings on top. Hey everybody! So I've made 12 little patties of rice flour. They were a little tricky, and so as you let the rice flour sit out over time, it tends to dry up a little bit, so if you need to add water along the way, go ahead and do that. It's a very delicate process. So, we're heating up the oil now, and it looks like it's pretty hot. You want to make sure it's nice and hot, otherwise these little buddies will just stick right onto the pan and you will not get them off.
Like barnacles.
And for this we're going to use basically a canola oil to fry. And feel free again to add more oil as you fry them up.
For the most part, canola oil is a hotter oil than olive oil. I think it's much better for deep frying. Very good, it's frying.
So it's frying. You don't want them to stick to each other, so you probably only want to fry 3 or 4 at a time.
Probably 4 in that pan.
And you'll want to fry these until they are nice and golden brown.
Excellent.
So we will see you very shortly when they are ready and I take out the first batch. So now it's time, as we're frying the other dumplings, to start making the patties, to start actually making the dumpling itself. So what I'm going to do is make a patty as well. This time a little bit bigger. I'm going to take one of my mung bean balls and just wrap the dough ever so gently around it. Your dough may break, that's okay. You'll just have to just be very delicate with it.
And add more dough, of course.
Yes, and add more dough if necessary. But this is a lot of a much easier process if your mung bean itself is nice and firm, because that's adding kind of like the stability to the dough itself. So you just want to roll this on up. And now I have this plate with rice flour on it. I'm just going to put it right there.
Excellent.
Give it a little bit of a roll so it doesn't stick onto the plate too badly. And then we'll keep on rolling. And so we'll see you soon when we're all done with rolling all of our dumplings. So Generoso has fried up all the little patties and they look beautiful.
Thank you.
And now we've rolled up as many balls as we can, and the steamer is nice and hot. Gonna take the lid off.
Careful, monkey.
Yes. I'm just going to actually take some oil and drizzle it across the bottom of the steamer itself. Because we want to put the little dumplings on this, but we don't want them to stick too badly to the surface. And we'll just place our dumplings into steam.
How long do you think they're going to steam for, Lily?
They're probably only going to need to steam for about like 5 to 10 minutes, because we just want the dough on the outside to actually cook. We don't necessarily need the filling to cook.
Yeah, it's true, because it's pre-cooked.
Indeed. So I've left all the dumplings in a place to where they're not touching each other, and I'm going to put the steamer lid on it, and we'll see you very shortly when the dumplings are done and we can actually put them on top of the fried patties. Alright, so our dumplings are now ready and done, and they're steaming. So all I'm using is a spoon and a fork to pick these guys up, and then plopping it right on top of one of the beautiful fried patties.
Excellent.
And we're going to now do that for all of our dumplings, and then I will put it on our actual final garnishing plate and show you how to finish everything off. See you soon. Alright, so I've taken one of the completed bennets with the steamed dumpling on top and the fried dumpling on the bottom, put it up next to some nice lettuce. What I'm going to do now is just going to take some of the scallion oil, put it on top. Make sure to get a little bit of green just to make it pretty. Let the oil drip a little bit down. Good. And now we have our fish sauce. And give it a good mix because it's been sitting and hanging for a little bit. And then just drizzle it over the bennet. And there you go. This has been it. Enjoy!